Welcome to the Busy Signal. My name is Jim, and this is my retrostalgic 80s, 90s, and early 2000s podcast. This show aims to salute all the stuff from back in the day that is now extinct or quickly going that way. Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to get right into it. This is part 2 of the Busy Signal Rewatches, The Transformers, the movie with my buddy George. And we had so much to talk about. I didn't know we were going to have to split it. George, welcome back.
Hey buddy, how's it going?
Good. I want to get right into this because, wow. Have you watched any Transformers since we last talked?
Let's see. I downloaded the soundtrack on Spotify, so I've been jamming out to the soundtrack. So
okay, real quick before we get into it, what is your favorite song off of that soundtrack other than the theme song?
Dare.
Yes,
that song gets me hype.
That song is legit. I actually like what is it? Instruments of Destruction.
It's a little hard for me.
That song is really rough. I love that. All right, so here's where we were last episode. We were right after the epic battle at the Autobots base. Optimus Prime and Megatron had their most amazing epic battle that we all wanted to see with an outcome that we weren't ready for. Optimus Prime has now passed on the matrix of power to Ultra Magnus because he has shockingly died. Megatron is mortally wounded and the Decepticons have now retreated and they are riding in Astro Train. This is where we're picking up and we get to see the Decepticons without Megatron are lost.
This is pretty comical where all the Decepticons are there's a vacuum for power. All the Decepticons are fighting with each other. And then ultimately Starscream takes Megatron, dumps him out into space along with several other of the Decepticons. I will say this is a very 80s moment and something that the early Transformers really struggled with, including the toys, was size issues, right?
100%.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed this, but like they're inside Astro Train, which when he was in robot mode had gotten run over by Prime, who's the size of a truck. Then all of a sudden, all the Decepticons can fit inside of Astro Train, including the Constructicons as Devastator.
Yes.
It doesn't work.
The Constructicons actually transformed into Devastator briefly inside of Astro Train.
Inside of Astro Train. And what's weird about it is the toys are the exact same way.
Yeah.
I have the the Generation 1 Ultra Magnus. He is bigger than Devastator.
Yes. Yes, he is.
He like if you put them side by side, I have both Generation 1 Devastator and I have Generation 1 Ultra Magnus. Ultra Magnus is bigger than Devastator as a toy.
If you're going to watch the Transformers, there's one thing that you have to firmly engross yourself in, and that is suspension of disbelief.
Absolutely.
Because physics don't really work so well sometimes.
Yeah, they do get better at this as more of our cartoons and movies, but like in the 80s, there was no rhyme or reason to the size of these Transformers and how they could fit inside of one another.
No matter where Optimus Prime goes, if he transforms into the tractor trailer, boom, all of a sudden the trailer just comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere. No matter where he goes, it just magics itself there. Megatron will transform into a gun and somehow this massive robot can transform itself down into a pistol that Starscream can hold in his hand. Come on now.
Yet when Shockwave transforms, he's this giant floating gun that's just dangling over whatever.
Anti-gravitational, no matter where he is.
There's no rhyme or reason there in the early Transformers to size.
But you know what? As a kid, your suspension of disbelief is natural. But as you watch as an adult, you're like, wait a minute, how does that? But anyway, we're on Astro Train right now. Megatron is barely functioning, even though he says,
"Wait, I still function."
And you get that great line from Starscream.
Wanna bet?
As he kicks him out into the abyss. That's classic Starscream right there, by the way. Always kicking somebody when they're down.
He's fantastic.
But then we cut over to Unicron. We get to actually have an up close and personal with Unicron. And Megatron is drawn into Unicron. And we get to hear that booming Orson Welles voice.
Megatron. Welcome, Megatron.
It's fantastic. It's so above and beyond. And it's scary almost at the same time that Megatron, for once, is meeting somebody that is above him. And we get to see him turned into Galvatron.
Yeah, I actually really love the scene. He transforms into Galvatron and Cyclonus and Scourge and the sweeps and that whole rebooting of those Decepticons is really neat.
It really is. So then Megatron accepts Unicron's terms, but Megatron is still Megatron, even though he's Galvatron. He's still going to have his own personal agenda. And his own personal agenda starts with revenge. Not to overlook the fact that now Megatron as Galvatron has Leonard Nimoy's voice.
Yeah, that part's awesome.
It's just like, it sounds like gravel. It's so great. We cut over to now what is Starscream taking control of the Decepticons, and he's got a cape on, and he's got this crown that he's going to wear, and he's going to sit on this purple throne. He's having his coronation, and there's trumpets. He wants the full fanfare because this is Starscream the narcissist.
Get on with the ceremony.
He is a fantastic character. Now, obviously, for those of you who watch G.I. Joe and Transformers, you know that Starscream is the same voice as Cobra Commander, and they're really the same character. Self-indulgent leaders who, yeah, you put it perfectly, are narcissistic, and this whole scene is just gold.
And it almost gets meta for a second, because here comes Galvatron, and Starscream is...
Who disrupts my coronation? Coronation, Starscream? This is bad comedy.
He just calls out for what it is, even though we're all thinking it. It's so cool. And crushes his helmet, and now... Does he blow away? Does he blow away Starscream? Yeah.
In season 2, you get the whole like Ghost of Starscream storyline where he's inhabiting Decepticons and Autobots and
yeah, I didn't sign off on that. That was so bad. The seasons 3 and 4 of Transformers go so far out in left field.
It's pretty wild.
So the coronation of Starscream didn't go as planned. Unicron is still moving according to plan. He has moved on to the moon bases where all of a sudden Daniel remembers he has a father. And where's my dad?
He's cursing his head off on the moon base.
Yes, this movie was PG, but there was some adult language here.
Yeah, this is one of the more shocking things when you watch this movie, besides the Autobots that get executed by the Decepticons, the Prime dying. You get some salty language first from Spike as he drops the S word as Unicron is devouring the moon. And then a little bit later on, and I'm sure we'll get to this, where Ultra Magnus is unable to open the Matrix.
Yeah.
Open, dang it, open. It's shocking in a kid's cartoon to hear people cursing.
I didn't notice it as a kid. I didn't notice it until maybe when I watched it later when I was in my 20s. I was like, wait, what did he just say? What? So the Autobots escape mostly from the moon base attacks. And the story now picks up with my favorite Transformers, the Dinobots.
Oh, well, gosh, this is right in my wheelhouse. Like, if there's one thing about this movie, we actually spend a decent amount of time with the Dinobots, but not nearly as much time as we should spend with the Dinobots.
Agreed.
They are so much fun. And think about this. When you're a kid, it's robots who transform into dinosaurs. And not only that, they are the goofiest, most ridiculous, most idiotic Transformers that there are. They just sound like the type of people I want to spend my life hanging out with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, isn't this every kid's dream? Like a robot that transforms into dinosaurs that are also tons of fun to hang out with. Second half of this movie is hanging out with the Dinobots.
Yeah, literally the stuff dreams are made of. And not only that, but it was really fun to do like a Grimlock impression, you know.
Me Grimlock, me king.
You know, stuff like that. I loved that. The way he talked was just hilarious. Anytime he opened his mouth, it was, like you said, it was dumb, but it was funny.
Oh, yeah. They carry the entire second half of the whole time when they're just listening to Cup tell stories. They're just sitting there enthralled by the stories of Cup, and then Cup's just like eating it up. He's like, oh, I got an audience here for my dumb stories. And not for nothing, it really played well in the movie, because to be honest with you, the pacing of this movie is so intense and so fast that you're almost out of breath. And just having that 3-4 minutes of just Cup and the Dinobots hanging out, relaxing. It won't last long, but you almost kind of needed this.
It was like a reset. It was like, take a breath, because they're on the run right now. They're trying to get away from the Decepticons who are trying to attack again. Galvatron is now on their tail again. They have, damaged ships and they're trying to get away. And now you, like you said, you have this breath of fresh air where it's story time with Uncle Cup. And then the Decepticons catch up. And then there's an attack. And then Hot Rod and Cup crash on a planet with the Dinobots and Blur. We don't know what planet that is yet. And then Ultra Magnus's ship with RC, Daniel, and Deceptor, they escape and they aim to land on the planet of Junk. This is my favorite planet in the whole movie, honestly. My favorite scenes happen here. And then we get Hot Rod and Cup and they wake up and they're underwater and we just had story time and then boom, there's an attack and now it's there's peril all over again. We've gone from one bad situation to worse. Every time the situations are worse in this movie and it's fantastic.
I really enjoy the scenes on Quintessa with the Quintessons, and you learn a lot more about them when you get into season 2 of Transformers. They do a lot in this next 15 minutes of movie where they introduce you to all the Junkions, they introduce you to Quintessa and the Quintessons and the Sharkticons. I would also say they do a lot here with Cup and Hot Rod, especially Hot Rod.
They do a lot of character development right here.
Yes, and I was going to save this for the end, but if I had a hot take from this movie is generally people, especially when you get to season 2 of Transformers, can't stand Rodimus Prime.
Agreed.
And I actually really like Hot Rod and I really like Rodimus Prime in this movie. I really like the arc that he goes on from immature to finding himself with the Matrix at the end of it. The problem with Rodimus Prime wasn't from the Transformers, the movie. It was from season 2 of Transformers. After he gets the Matrix, he basically turns into Ultra Magnus, which you're just sick of Ultra Magnus by the end of this movie. He's just self-doubting. And he doesn't have the confidence and moral aptitude that Optimus has. And Rodimus has that at the end of this movie. But then when you get into the season 2 of Transformers, he's constantly questioning himself. He doesn't seem to have a moral compass where, you always knew what Optimus was going to do.
Which was the right thing.
Yeah. And what they do with Rodimus in this movie is I actually think is really good. What they do with him after this movie.
That's the thing. We were sold a bill of goods that they didn't deliver. They gave us Rodimus Prime. They gave us Hot Rod. I really liked Hot Rod. And I guess I liked him, but I just didn't have enough time with him. Right. I wanted to like him, and then they sell us the next season of Transformers where I'm like, wait, I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, where he spends every other episode talking about how he's not Optimus Prime. Well, we know you're not Optimus Prime. Just be you, man.
We're now fighting underwater with Hot Rod and Cup, and I just want to point out the song that's being played, which is Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way, and I have to be careful because the band's name is Kick Axe, which is just, take from that what you will. That's just incredibly laughable.
Transformers, the movie, is cursing.
I just have to say it again. Kick Axe. Anyway, moving on. Ultra Magnus and his crew are now repairing their ship. They need to repair their ship. And Daniel gets his exosuit, which is completely, I hate this scene.
Yeah, can we just skip over this? I think I've made my point about humans in movies already.
You can literally cut this whole scene out and you haven't missed a darn thing. Hot Rod fixes Cup, which is such a great scene. And the Sharkticons approach. We meet the Sharkticons, which those are really cool. I love the Sharkticons.
Yeah, that's actually one of the few toys that I've always wanted to get. I've never owned a Sharkticon.
I had one in my hand probably about 2 weeks ago, and I didn't pull the trigger.
I'll get one eventually.
We now learn the universal greeting.
Don't act hostile. I'll use the universal greeting.
Universal greeting?
Watch. I'll have him eating out of my hand. Ba weep grana weep ninibong.
Ba weep grana weep ninibong?
Ba weep grana weep ninibong.
That obviously doesn't work. That was Cup's plan. Give them some Energon, goodies, and they're now captured by the Sharkticons, and they're going to the Quintessons now, or at least a Quintesson, to be judged.
Always judged. You guilty or innocent, they're going into the Sharkticon pond.
We go back to the Dinobots, and we meet somebody new with the Dinobots. We meet Wheelie. Now, I'm on the fence about Wheelie, and I want to like Wheelie, but then he opens his mouth.
Yeah.
And then...
Fine, look behind. You go wrong way, you fool, I say.
and I'm not good with Wheelie all of a sudden.
Yeah, unfortunately, they tried. To me, they had too many characters already like Wheelie.
Right. Well, the thing was, Wheelie seemed like very lighthearted, almost like comedic relief a little bit, when the Dinobots themselves were the comedic relief already.
Yeah, I've always felt like Wheelie was just a miss.
Kicking over to Galvatron, who has now failed to kill Ultra Magnus. Unbeknownst to him, he thinks he's killed Ultra Magnus when Ultra Magnus's ship went down into the planet of junk. He doesn't do his due diligence to find out if he actually killed Ultra Magnus or not. He has to find out from Unicron. So it's kind of like the same old Megatron inside that Galvatron body of his.
There's some real leadership issues on both of these guys. You got Galvatron, who doesn't take 30 seconds to actually make sure he destroyed the Autobot ship. And then you got Ultra Magnus, who when Hot Rod, Cup, and the Dinobot ship goes down, he's like, well, I can't be bothered with that right now. Pretty sure Prime turns around and, goes back and defends his friends, but this is why we don't like Ultra Magnus.
So now we get to one of my favorite scenes. I think it's one of your favorite scenes. We've got the Junkions. We learn that they speak, TV. We have that fun scene where it's Dare to Be Stupid. Weird Al. He took a Devo-esque song and made just the best Devo song that wasn't a Devo song. I think it's better than Devo.
Well, the Junkions are great because this is how we talk now, isn't it? Like they talked in 80s TV. We just talk through memes now, right? Like these guys were literally years before their time.
Yes. They spoke in like TV. They spoke infomercials and TV commercials. And now, we're speaking memes 100%. So the Junkions see the Decepticons coming and they watch, pretty much everybody watches as the Decepticons destroy the Autobot shuttle and then attack Ultra Magnus, and Ultra Magnus gets completely dismantled.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to feel bad here, but they have done such a good job of showing you why Ultra Magnus should not be the leader of the Autobots that you're kind of like, oh well.
He literally stood there cursing, trying to rip open the Matrix, thinking that it was just going to magically open for him without actually fighting. Prime said it. An Autobot is going to rise to the occasion. And then you've got him just thinking he was just handed a magic 8-ball or something. Am I going to win this fight? No. Oops.
Yeah, it's a tough movie for Ultra Magnus, that's for sure.
Hot Rod and Cup learn from another robot, Unicron, is pretty much out to eat everything. He's just a massive nuisance, for lack of better words. Then they watch this poor innocent robot who has already escaped certain fate to go to another certain fate to be judged by the Quintessons. And they have a very, very simple judicial system.
Guilty or innocent.
There's no jury, and those are interchangeable. It doesn't matter if you're innocent or guilty, you're still going to swim with the Sharkticons. And when they are found innocent, they do swim with the Sharkticons. And then we get one more little hit of some amazing music by Kick-Axe. We get Hunger by Kick-Axe. It's going to be the last time I say it. Grimlock now comes in and does what Grimlock does. He's king. He takes over, and the Sharkticons look at him, and they're going to attack, and he goes, "Not me! Attack him!" And they go after, the Quintesson, and pretty much, I just want Grimlock with me at all times.
That's right. Yeah, I was going to say, this whole movie should just be all Dinobots all the time.
And then Wheelie actually redeems himself a little bit by like, oh yeah, and by the way, I might be like the size of a raisin, but I have a massive ship, and it's just going to rise out of nowhere, and I'm going to save the day.
Yeah, so they steal the Quintesson ship and head off to reunite with the other Autobots.
And then we get Galvatron now, who's going to try to flip the script on Unicron. And Galvatron is now dismantled. Ultra Magnus has the matrix of leadership and presents it to Unicron and says, "Hey, buddy, remember that matrix that I'm supposed to get and give to you? Well, I'm not giving it to you. It's mine. You belong to me. I'm a regular size robot and you're the size of Saturn. You belong to me." And we see how that worked out for Galvatron.
Yeah, he ticks off Unicron. Unicron decides to take it out on Cybertron and launches a full-scale assault, transforming into this awesome robot mode. And this is awesome, I think, when you see him go from, at this point in the movie, you've only seen him as the planet. And then you're like, oh my goodness, he's a robot too, and just turns into this super menacing looking
Evil. It looks evil. He's got horns and wings.
Fantastic. Like Unicron, whether he's the planet with the horns there, or when he transforms into robot mode with those wings, he just looks like a flying devil.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is the 80s, and Unicron is the definition of heavy metal. He belongs on a Guns N' Roses album cover. He then eats Galvatron. Like he's like a grape.
Yeah.
Just, neck back, head up, bloop. There goes Galvatron. Now things are really starting to hit the fan. And you've got the Autobots with the Junkions and Wheelie's ship, and they are going to engage with Unicron, and they're going straight for the eye. Like, they're going right through Unicron's eye, which is apparently just stained glass.
You would think he'd had like some eyelids to protect his eyes or something, but no, they just like fly right into him. And then you have basically all the main characters are inside of Unicron for the last like 10 minutes of this movie. And I feel like this is like a really 80s thing. We had you remember that movie Interspace where it was a whole movie that took place inside? We loved in the 80s just getting inside of things.
Absolutely. I mean, the Magic School Bus, there was a whole episode where they shrunk down and went inside of somebody. Like they were in somebody's colon. It was weird.
Miss Frizzle, she'll go to some crazy places.
Indeed. Be careful. They might even be in you now and you don't know. You are a field trip just waiting to happen.
That's right. So then we get Dare once again as they're fighting off the internal defenses of Unicron. You got all those hooks. These scenes are great where they're just running around inside of Unicron battling his
innards.
So
like there's water in there too. Like he's got like he just drank some Evian. There's water in there. It's so weird.
I guess if you're swallowing whole planets and they have lakes, you would have water inside of you, right?
I suppose so. I mean, good point. He's got acid in there too. So we've got the Dinobots now, and they're continuing their barrage of attacks from the outside. And then RC is going to try and navigate Unicron's insides. And then we find Spike, Jazz, Bumblebee. Meanwhile, while that's going on, we have Hot Rod, who has now found Galvatron, and he's going to battle Galvatron. They're exchanging formalities as far as before the match goes.
Again, I hate to be the guy that points this out, but Unicron is a planet-sized robot. He's the size of an entire planet. And just so happens Hot Rod and Galvatron run into each other inside this planet-sized robot.
Funny meeting you here.
We needed to have this confrontation.
Absolutely. And then we get the whole scene where Daniel saves, all the Autobots that were about to be dropped into acid, and he saves his dad and blah, blah, blah. Really what we're looking at here is the Galvatron Hot Rod fight, and Hot Rod activates the Matrix. He activates the Matrix and he becomes Rodimus Prime, and we get The Touch by Stan Bush that's playing. I've never heard of Stan Bush ever since this movie or before the movie, but whatever. The man was needed for this movie. He had the touch. He made this movie what it was. His music is golden right here. And pretty much Hot Rod manhandles Galvatron. Like it's an easy win.
Yeah, this is the part where you really come out of this movie liking Rodimus, because he really, to your point, he just grabs Galvatron and just throws him right outside of Unicron into space.
This is the end of the road, Galvatron.
And then he immediately takes the mantle. Autobots roll out and they bust out Unicron's other eyeball.
Yep. And then the Matrix, after he manhandles Galvatron, the Matrix destroys Unicron. The Autobots escape Unicron as he explodes. And this is the end of the Cybertronian Wars, ? Till all are one. And it ends really epically with Unicron's head hurtling through space. And we get that theme again from Lion. And that's where this movie, it ends as quickly as it starts.
It's so abrupt. The ending of this movie is so abrupt. Unicron blows up and you're into credits 20 seconds later.
Yeah.
It's jarring how quickly this movie ends.
This movie is the definition of a roller coaster. It went from 0 to 60, from 60 to 0 in no seconds at all.
Yeah, the pacing of this movie was tough, but at the same time, there are just so many scenes here that are so rewatchable and so enjoyable. It's certainly a flawed movie in a lot of ways, but also just incredibly entertaining at times.
George, this has been really fun. I was afraid we'd have to hit a part 3, but I think we did all right.
If anybody's still listening to this,
if you're still listening to this, you really are a Transformers fan.
I was going to say, we're a couple of nerds, and now all your fans know it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That's okay, because Transformers will keep coming back in one way or another throughout this show because they're timeless.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. Where does this rank in Transformers? Is the Transformers, the movie, is this the high watermark for Transformers, or is it a jumping off point for other Transformer?
I believe it sets a benchmark. It's the benchmark where you have to, this is your starting point. You can only go up or down from here. This is where it all starts, really. It sets the bar. Because
the reality is after Generation 1, I kind of dropped off of Transformers. I never got into Beast Wars. And it wasn't until Transformers Prime that I really got back into Transformers. Going back and watching this, it really, there are just some things I really enjoy about this movie.
Absolutely. I have gone back, pretty much mirror your story. I didn't go back. I didn't do Beast Wars. I didn't do Headmasters, but I have gone back and watched everything pretty much almost at this point. And I appreciate it all mostly. George, once again, before we run out of time here, I know you're a busy man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, anytime. I'll come nerd out with you anytime you want, Jim. See ya, bud.
See ya. The Transformers, the movie. I feel like George and I could talk about this for hours. And had we not had time restrictions, we would have. And if it's been a while since you've seen the movie, it's absolutely worth a rewatch. And if you've just listened to this episode, it's still worth a rewatch because we haven't really spoiled it 100%, because there really is nothing like seeing and hearing and experiencing this movie for yourself. It really is a roller coaster ride. It is so much fun. So thanks again to George for coming on and talking Transformers and geeking out. I hope you had fun just like we did. And if you did, head on over to Spotify, Apple, hit that subscribe button, just give it a good old mash, hit that 5-star rating, leave a positive review if you've got a minute. It really just helps me know what everybody's liking and where to go with future episodes. And if you'd like even more content from me and the Busy Signal podcast, I have loads more going on Instagram. Like, for example, we did the 90s Tech podcast a couple episodes ago. Well, for a whole week, I filmed myself taking care of a Tamagotchi as a 40-something-year-old. If you'd like to see what that was like, head on over to Instagram @BusySignalCast, and you'll find tons of other cool stuff. So thanks to all of you guys for hanging out and listening. Until next time, till all are one.
Me Grimlock say you full of cesium salami.